Thank you for the heads up.
I will be right back.
I have no idea. Look in the almanac. See what the almanac says.
No, it's not like he would. Mr. Gregory. She told Mr. Gregory to get her away. Okay, but Mr. Gregory is the first wingman ever. No, why else would you? No. I don't know which one is for. No, I don't know. I don't know. It's a game. It really is. Voting. Good job. Yes.
It was cool. How long was it?
Your turn. 6 days before the election. I'm kidding, no, you won't. It's you're off to
I mean, it should take long though, because like,
Wait a minute, wait a minute. For the presidents. What about senators? No. Yes, senators. Local officials, such.
Come again?
I mean, it shouldn't be too hard though, because it's like, so it's really easy.
And then rotate paragraph.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. And why? Is that why we have it? Because she has to choose
What are your 4 points? Your 4 topics?
like nonstop. And then all I know is I'm gonna discuss like why teachers do it, why it's bad, the habits it causes, in my opinion. Really all I know.
I did, student stress, job employment.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of their homework or anything in particular?
Okay, so on that quiz, I put a like 52.2, but they said that they wanted a fraction, but the time that I took the quiz before that, I put in a fraction and then they wanted like the number and
All you need to do is send me an email
okay.
saying this quiz, number this, look at how I gave my answer, and if it's equivalent answer, just decimal fraction, then I'll go in there and give you credit for it, no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is kind of a lazy question because I can go on
That's fine.
Mathway and see it. But is the review going to be like
Which
the longest
review for
we
the-
had, like the final review,
Uh-huh.
or is it going to be like a few questions?
The review for the final has about 40 questions on it. So
Is it still the same?
very manageable.
Like the same thing stands, like what you see on the review is what you see on the test?
If you prepare well by studying, yes, don't dismiss any question that's on the review. Like there may be 2 that tell you to graph something and maybe only 1 that says factor something, but don't think just because there was 1 that says factor that that's less important than the 2 that said graph. Treat every single problem on there like it's very important. And if you study that, you should be very prepared for the final. Yes. Excuse me? The review will not be for a grade. There will be a review opening up for this last test because we still have one more test to go that will cover Chapter 10 and Chapter 9. And so Monday will be review, and Wednesday will be your test. And there's a review, and with the review it says, here's the review, but make sure you just study your homework for Chapter 9, because Chapter 9 was so short, I didn't create more review for that. It's just study your homework for Chapter 9 part. Your test will be online, so you will need to bring, those of you that are here, bring your calculator. Bring your calculator because you'll want it for doing those matrices. Make sure you have your calculator. Bring your computer. You can take it in here. If you're not going to take it in here, please see me. Okay, so if you're not going to take it in here with me, see me. Okay, and you will have 60 minutes to do it. You don't need 60 minutes. So, you know, if you want to come 10 minutes early or stay 10 minutes late, well, really 10 minutes late, let's just do that. I'll stay 10 minutes late if you want the full 60 minutes. For those of you out at the high schools, if your facilitator can work it out so that you can have that extra little 10 minutes, that's fine. If not, it'll be okay. You don't have to have it. I'm just trying to make you not stress, okay, in any way possible. There's 20 questions on it. I'm trying to set it up kind of like to get you familiar with, this is going to be like, you're going to take it, there's going to be 20 questions, you got 60 minutes. That's pretty much what your final is like, okay? I'm not taking up, you will want scratch paper to do your work on, but I'm not going to take it up. Just like, I'll just go back and look, and if there's obvious things that I could go back and see that you made, I could give you credit for, okay? So that's the plan for Wednesday. Today we'll finish all the material that we need for this course. So today's the last day of new material, okay? Any questions before we get started about anything? Okay. Today is partial decomposition of fractions. Why we do this course is called pre-calculus. Well, because in calculus, we often want to perform operations, and if we had a fraction that looked like this, it would be easier if we could break it up, okay? So this technique that you're learning here, you would apply again in calculus. So what we want to do is we want to be able to rewrite this fraction so that it's the sum of two fractions. So it would be some number A over x plus 4 plus some number B over 4x minus 1. So you see the setup in the denominator. Your denominator has to be set up so that it is a product of something. So I've got x plus 4 times 4x minus 1. And each of these factors becomes, you see, those denominators. So that's what's happening there. So we're going to use basic algebra technique to know how we can simplify this. So I want to rewrite the left-hand side so that it looks like the right-hand side. Setting this up, those two sides would be equal. So since they're equal, it's like a little equation. And I don't want fractions anymore, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the common denominator. What would my common denominator be? Yes, the product, x plus 4 times 4x minus 1. That's going to be my LCD. So I'm going to multiply both sides, I don't know why that's there, by the x plus 4 times the 4x minus 1. So I'm going to do that on both sides. I'm just going to write LCD because it's not going to fit on my screen. Okay, so that's the LCD. I'm going to multiply it on both sides. When I do that, what happens to my left-hand side? What does it become? Yes, 9x plus 4, because that entire denominator cancels out. Now remember, I'm distributing here. I'm doing that to each one. So when I take that first fraction and I multiply it by the LCD, what happens to the x plus 4s? They cancel out, so I'm left with a times 4x minus 1. And then with the b over 4x minus 1, when I multiply it, the 4x minus 1s cancel out, leaving me with b times x plus 4. So that was using information way back in the review section at the beginning of the course. So now what I'm going to do, and this is where it may feel like, well, why are you doing that? How are you doing that? What I'm going to do is, this is linear. It means I can plug in any x, right? There's no restrictions on what my x could be. So I'm going to be strategic with choosing my x values. I'm going to choose an x value that would make either this part become 0 or that part become 0. So that's how you're going to choose your values that you're going to let x be. So I'm going to start by saying, let's let x be equal to a negative 4. Let x be equal to a negative 4. All right. Plug that into both sides. So I'm going to have 9 times negative 4 plus 4 equals a times 4 times negative 4 minus 1 plus b times negative 4 plus 4. And so you see this part right here becomes 0, so this whole term right there goes away. So all I'm left with is I've got my negative 9 times, my 9 times my negative 4, that's negative 36 plus 4 equals a times, and that's negative 16 minus 1, a negative 17. So negative 32 equals negative 17a. So a is equal to, and it would ultimately be a positive 32 over 17. So what I have done is I have found the value for a. So I'm going to go back, employ the same strategy, but find something that would cancel out the part that would make that 0. That's what I want. So the first time I found what made that one 0. I can choose, I just chose the negative 4 first because it was simple. It's easy on my eyes to do. This next part, I've got 4x minus 1, and I want to choose the x that would make that part equal to 0. What would that be? I've got 4x minus 1, and I want it to be equal to 0. So if I choose the x to be 1/4, it would make that part equal to 0. So for my next part, I'm going to say, let's let x be equal to 1/4. So now everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put in 1/4. So that's going to be 9 times 1/4 plus 4 equals a times 4 times 1/4 minus 1 plus b times 1/4 plus 4. See, that goes to 0, so that whole part goes away. See the strategy? All right. So now I've got it, so the only thing I don't know is b. So I'm just number crunching algebra once I get to this stage. All right. So this is going to give me 9/4 plus 4 equals b times, and if you add that together, I'm going to need 17/4. Gives me 25/4 equals 17 over 4 times b. And so remember, when you divide by a fraction, you flip and multiply, so you get 25 over 17 is your value for b. So now I've found my a and I found my b, so I can rewrite in the very beginning, I can rewrite the original fraction as a decomposition. So I'll say, therefore, my original problem, which was 9x plus 4 over x plus 4 times 4x minus 1 can now be written as, remember the a that I found was 32 over 17. I'm going to write this in a very odd way, and then I'm going to go back and write it like how I would expect you to leave it. Okay, remember, because this was the a, right? That's where I wrote the a. And then the b that I found was 25 over 17. And that was over 4x minus 1. There is one problem, I think, in your homework that actually does want you to put it in there like that, which seems odd. We don't usually leave fractions inside of fractions. We don't do that. So there's one problem that does that, but how you should leave the answer was you would put the 32 on top, you'd put the 17 on the bottom, and you would say that's being multiplied by the x plus 4. And then do the same thing for the 25. Make sure you have your little parentheses around there. So I was able to decompose that original fraction. Okay, so that's the process we're just going to do over and over today, and hopefully you'll find the pattern. Before I go to a next problem, are there any questions about any step here? All right, let's look at another one. Here we have x over x squared plus 11x plus 10. The difference in this one and our previous one is, remember how I said we needed to know in the denominator we needed it as something times something, we needed it multiplied together, not added and subtracted. But this is a quadratic, so I could factor that, right? So we're going to want to factor our denominator. So let's just rewrite this as x over, and we'll just factor that. So what do I need? What do you think I need to factor that? What's my n going to be down there? 2, a 5, a 10, and a 1. What am I going to need? A 10 and a 1. So a 10 and a 1, and I'm adding. So all I'm doing here is just rewriting, okay? Just rewrite. My pen is so thick, I can't even write very well here. Right, that's all I'm doing. So the next stage is going to be to write it like I want it to be, using its partial decomposition. So I want this new fraction with these product on the bottom. I want that to be a over x plus 10 plus b over x plus 1. So that's ultimately what I want. So I just need to find the a and the b value. So first step is get rid of your fractions. So what are you going to multiply both sides by? The LCD, which is, yes, x plus 10 times x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the LCD. Make a note in your notes if you don't remember what the LCD is. The LCD is the x plus 10 times the x plus 1. And we're doing that on both sides. Okay? So that makes the left-hand side become x. And this becomes a times what? Yes, x plus 1 plus b times, perfect. There you go. So see, that's much more pleasing to look at, right? And then if you just remember your strategy to find your A or your B, you want to eliminate the other one. So if I'm looking for A, I want to eliminate B. If I'm looking for B, I want to eliminate A. And you can find either one first that you want. And so you're going to get to choose whatever value of x would make the other one go away. So the first thing that I chose was, I said, let's just let x be a -1. So I'm going to do that, and that's going to make the a go away, right? Because if x is a -1, that would be 0. So go back, and everywhere you see an x, put in a -1. And notice when I do that, I change from parentheses to brackets, and I'm only doing that so I don't have all those parentheses all over everywhere. I don't want to get confused. This goes to 0, so that whole thing goes away. And I'll have -1 is equal to 9b. So my b value is going to be -1/9. So I found my b. Now, what do I want x to be equal to the next time so that I can get rid of the other part? Yes, -10. So this time I'm going to let x be equal to -10. And go back. Remember, each time when I'm plugging back in my x, I'm going back in to where the equation is where I got rid of my fractions. Okay, that's the one I'm always going back to when I'm choosing values for x and I'm plugging it back in. So this time I'm choosing what would make the b term go away. So I chose x is equal to -10. So we plug in a -10 everywhere. So I'll have -10 equals a times -10 plus 1 plus b times -10 plus 10. That goes to 0, so that whole term goes away. So -10 is equal to -9a, and so a is going to be equal to 10/9. I found my a and my b. So now you just need to make sure in the last step that you rewrite the original. So our original was x over x plus 10 times x plus 1. And now our a was 10/9, so I'm going to write that as 10 over 9 times x plus 10. And our b was -1/9, so that's going to be a -1 over 9 times x plus 1. Like, put it in between the two, either way is fine. But it just, and either way is equivalent. MyMathLab may already have the little plus there, or they may have you write the whole thing out, but you should get credit either way because they are equivalent. And if that does something and it doesn't, just shoot me an email. I'll fix it. Yep. So she was just asking, hey, could I rewrite it? And yes, that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to give you one to try. So here you're going to start with 14 over 3x times 5x plus 7. Okay? And so remember, it's already in the denominator factored out for you. So you're looking for a over 3x plus b over 5x plus 7. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to try that. Okay, does anybody have any questions with the first line when you're multiplying both sides by the LCD? Okay, so once we do that, that's when we begin choosing values for our x. What did you choose to let x be in the beginning? It doesn't matter which one did you choose. 0, yep. I like 0 too. Let's do that one first because that's going to make the b go away. So that's going to give me 14 is equal to a times 5 times 0 plus 7 plus b 3 times 0. That's going to go to 0, so that whole thing is going to go away. So 14 is going to be equal to 7a. And so you should have gotten a is equal to 2. Any questions about getting a is equal to 2? All right, then what did you let x be the next time? Yes, negative 7 over 5. Any questions about how they came up with choosing negative 7 over 5? Just to remind you, what they did is they took that factor right there, which was 5x plus 7, and you set it equal to 0. So if you take 5x plus 7 and set it equal to 0, you're going to get negative 7 over 5. So that's where that came from. Okay? So now you'll go, and everywhere you see an x, you're going to put in negative 7/5. So we'll have 14 is equal to a times 5 times negative 7/5 plus 7 plus b times 3 times negative 7/5. Okay, that's going to go to 0, so that whole piece will go away. And you will have, when you number crunch that, negative 21 over 5 times b. And I would leave it just like that until the end, because now you're going to divide by that fraction, so you're going to flip and multiply. So b is going to be equal to a negative 10/3. Any questions about coming up with negative 10/3? Make sure you're comfortable with your calculator, doing fractions. So therefore, our original 14 over 3x times 5x plus 7 can be written as, see, our a was 2, so 2 over 3x. And our b was a negative 10/3. And again, you could, if you wanted to, bring that negative down as a subtraction. And you don't have to distribute that 3 and multiply it out or anything. You can just stop right there. So remember, there's one homework problem where for some reason they take that 10/3 and they sit it on top of the fraction. But you'll see when you're typing it into MyMathLab, that's where they've got the little blue box, so there's no way for you to put a number on the bottom. But other than that one, they expect you to write it like we've done here. Okay, I want to do one that actually has 3. What we've done so far is just had A's and B's. But you can have A's, B's, and C's. So here we've got x squared minus x minus 13. And in the denominator, we have x times x plus 1 times x minus 1. So the process is still exactly the same. You make sure your denominator is a product of things, right? And each factor then will be written underneath a variable. So I'll have a over x plus b over x plus 1 plus c over x minus 1. I would still multiply both sides by the LCD. You know, this would be my LCD, you know, each time it has been. So you multiply both sides by the LCD, And so on the left-hand side, I'll have 8x squared minus x minus 13. But now tell me, what's going to be with the a? Yes, the x part would be canceled out, but the x plus 1 and the x minus 1 would still be there. And with the b, the x plus 1 gets canceled out, but I still have the x and the x minus 1. And with the c, the x minus 1 gets canceled out, so I have the x and the x plus 1. You can kind of see that? So with the a, I've got x plus 1, x minus 1. With the b, I have the x and the x minus 1. And with the c, I have the x and the x plus 1. So the strategy is the same, but notice this time if I started out by saying let's let x be equal to 0. Watch what will happen, because here I'm just saying, oh, I'm thinking about what's going to make one of those go away. And you can always go back and look right here, right? And you just need something that's going to make the first one 0, which would be 0. Something that's going to make the second one 0 is going to be a -1. And the one that's going to make the last one 0 would be a +1. So those are the three values that you're going to choose that's going to carry you through the problem. So I just said, let's begin by letting x be 0. So when x is 0, you're just going to substitute in a 0 everywhere you see an x. So this would be 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 1. But what's going to happen to my b? That's right. My b is going to cancel out, and my c. Can't hardly see that, but those two cancel out, right? Because they're multiplied by 0. So on the left-hand side, I have -13. And on the right-hand side, I end up with a -1a. So a is going to be equal to 13. All right, for the next two, I'm going to let x be equal to 1. And let's see. How about Ocracoke? Ocracoke, y'all tell me what happens when x is equal to 1. And then Plymouth, y'all tell me what happens if I let x be equal to a -1. So Ocracoke and Plymouth are going to work these two. So Ocracoke is going to tell me what happens when x is equal to 1. And you can work it on your own to make sure that you're getting the correct answer also and that you know what's going on. So Ocracoke, you let me know whenever you find your answer, okay?
Can you scroll up so we can see the problem above?
Sure. And then Plymouth, whenever you have your answer, you can tell us what your answer is also. No, we can't hear you, Ocracoke, if that's what you're asking.
Would it be undefined?
Nope, it's not undefined. Echoing. About Plymouth, have you found yours yet?
We're still working on it. We almost finished.
That's fine. Okay, so let's walk through it when x is equal to 1 then. When x is equal to 1, I go back and everywhere I see an x, I put in a 1. So that's going to give me an 8 minus a 1 minus a 13. And then both my a and my b are going to cancel out, leaving me with c times 1 times 2. So ultimately, c is going to be equal to a negative 3. So Ocracoke, when you asked was it undefined, did you see where your mistake was?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have any questions?
No, we're good.
All right, awesome. All right, now let's see. Plymouth was doing when x is equal to a negative 1.
Okay. Okay, we're ready.
All right, and what did you get when you got x is equal to a negative 1? What did you find out?
B equals -2.
Perfect. B is equal to -2. So therefore, we can write our answer, our original problem, which was 8x squared minus x minus 13 divided by x times x plus 1 times x minus 1 equals. So our A was 13. Our B was -2. So also make sure that, you're paying attention to where the A's and the B's and the C's go, because I didn't find them in the order of A, B, and C. So be careful about that. And then our C was a -3, and that's over x minus 1. Yes?
So I didn't get the same answers for C and B, and I'm not sure how.
Okay.
I thought I followed along from
Yes.
your previous example.
All right, awesome. So we're going to look back at how did we get C as a -3, right? Okay, so I let x be equal to 1. So that means I'm going to come back up here in that big long thing, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put in a 1, okay? So that's going to give me, I'm going to just, you're okay with the A, so I'm going to erase the A part. Are you okay with that? Okay. So I have room to write and can still see this. All right. So here I'm going to let x be equal to 1. So I would have 8 times 1 squared minus 1 minus 13 on that side. Okay. Now when I get to the A part, you see, I would have 1 plus 1, but I'd also have 1 minus 1. So that makes that whole piece go to 0. And then the B, I would have a 1, and then also again a 1 minus 1, which makes that whole part go to 0. And then for the C, I'm going to write it underneath here so I can see it. 1 times 1 plus 1. Okay, so far, so I put a 1. All right, so then let's see, on the left-hand side, this is going to give me an 8 minus a 1 minus a 13, which is a -6.
I did 8 times 1 first, and then squared that, and then that freaked everything up.
Okay, that's a good point, because you see here, the only thing that's squared is the x. Yeah, the x. And so, yeah, if you squared the 8, that would totally give you. And so that's probably what happened in the next one, too, because if you did that same thing, yeah, you're going to get the wrong answer. So, yay that we found it.
Right-hand side I'm good, it's just the left side.
Okay. So that's important to know that whenever you see an exponent, it only goes directly with what it's attached to. In order for that 8 to be included, it'd have to have parentheses around it. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so I've got one for each site to do. All right, so do I have anybody at Mattamuskeet today? You're looking mighty bare. Yes,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
yes.
Yes,
All right,
some
awesome.
of them on a college trip.
Yes, that's right. I knew some were on a college trip. Okay, so Mattamuskeet, if you would please work this problem. 5 over 3x times 2x plus 1. Okay, so Mattamuskeet, I'll put a little M for Mattamuskeet. Number 2, Ocracoke. If you would work 3x minus 1 over x times x plus 1, Ocracoke. Plymouth. If you would do 4x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 times 2x minus 1. And then Columbia, you can do x plus 2 over x plus 1 times x minus 1. And then Beaufort, if y'all would do x over x squared plus 4x minus 5. This is like the final problem of the semester. Until the test till you study, but you know. I agree.
Next one's the review for chapter.
Monday will be review. That's right. Test is on Wednesday.
And then what are we doing Friday?
We will begin reviewing for the final on Friday.
Will there be like a study guide for the final?
You good? No. Okay. Now, clearly this is just like the beginning types of partial decomposition. There are ones that get much more complicated than this. So we're just sticking with the basics. So whenever, Madam Mesquite, y'all had number 1. So whenever you're ready, you just let me know.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, Madam Mesquite, what did you get for your answer for number 1?
We got 5 over 3x plus
Yep.
Plus negative 10 over 3 times 2x plus 1.
Perfect. Very good. Any questions as you went through that?
No, ma'am.
All right. Awesome job. Thank you. Okay, Ocracoke. Have you finished yours yet?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What did you get for your answer?
We got 4 over x plus negative 1 over x plus 1.
Okay. I agree with your values, but you put them on the wrong part.
Oh, my bad. Oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah. Be careful about when you found your A and B. You might have found B first, but make sure you put it over the right part. So, I didn't mean to erase all that. So your answers, you have the right numbers. Just be careful that you put them over the correct part. So you found the right negative 1 and you found the right 4. Just make sure when you put it there that you put it on the right spot, okay?
Okay.
All right, good job. And that was a good point to make, all right? So you might find the right values, and don't think the one you found first just goes on the top of the first one. Make sure it's going on the right place. Okay, Plymouth, have you finished yours?
Yes.
Okay, what did you get for your answer?
6 over 5. X plus 2
Yes.
plus 8 over 5, 2x minus 1.
Perfect. Very good. Very good. Any questions?
No.
All right, very good. All right, Columbia, are you finished?
We are.
Okay, tell me what you got.
We got negative 1
Yep.
over 2 times x plus 1,
Yep.
and then plus 3 over 2 times x minus 1.
Perfect. Very good. Any questions? Very good, very good. And then finally, Beaufort. Are y'all finished? Okay, you got one? What you got?
1 over 6.
Okay, you have the right 1/6 and the right 5/6, but be careful that the 1/6 goes with the x minus 1 and the 5/6 goes with the x plus 5. So just be careful. Is everybody okay with that? Does that work, that problem? All right. If you can do these problems, then you can do 9.4. You can do all of 9.4 homework, and you could do any problem they gave you on the final for 9.4 if you can do these problems. Okay? All right, so on Monday, get all your homework done. The review should be open. Work on that. And then Monday is the review day, so come with questions. Okay?